let's get to Skin of Evil.
Yes.
This episode is kind of interesting in that it was written by Joseph Stefano. Now, that name may not jump out at you. He is the screenwriter who wrote the script for Psycho.
Oh.
So we have Robert Bloch on the original series who wrote the book Psycho, writing Wolf in the Fold, What Little Girls Are Made Of, and Cat's Paw. And now we have Joseph Stefano on Next Generation.
They both have a whole thing about killing women off.
They do.
Yeah.
And so we get Joseph Stefano here writing Skin of Evil. Interesting episode in as much as it's bad, but it's interestingly bad.
Okay, yeah, approaching this one, all I remember, from when I first viewed this episode is like, what a crappy way to get rid of Tasha Yar. But on the rewatch, I think this is really an episode meant not for a main character's departure, but for what would have been like a kind of a red shirt, essentially. Like, how do you deal with kind of a meaningless death?
Yes.
This is not the way you treat the departure of a main character here. For those who don't remember, this tar-like beast, Armis, just randomly kills Tasha when she's trying to save Deanna from a shuttle crash landing site.
And random is definitely the word, because it's so, I did not remember how quickly it happens in the episode and how abruptly.
The other thing that bugs me, though, is it doesn't make Tasha Yar look all that awesome either.
Definitely not. And Denise Crosby said, Gene really felt that the strongest way to go would be to have me killed. That would be so shocking and dramatic that he wanted to go with that. Was this dramatic? No, that's the thing. It's so tossed off. There's no build up to it. There's no real, even when when they say she's dead, you're like, what?
Because it doesn't even happen at the end of an act break. It happens in the middle of an act break, and then they bring her up to sickbay, and they're like, yeah, she's dead now.
And the show, the history of Star Trek has shown many scenes where characters can get hit with beams or whatever and get up.
Yes.
It makes no sense why this is the death blow.
No, because I think a lot of fans must, at the time, they must have been sitting there knowing 80s television tropes. They must have been sitting there thinking, okay, well, we'll just wait till the end of the episode, and then they'll bring her back to life somehow.
Right.
Never happened. Instead, we get that funeral scene where she very much on the nose acknowledges every single relationship she has with the main cast members, including Wesley.
I would have loved if there had just been one character where she's like, anyways, moving on.
Who would that have been? Let's go through the cast, Cam. Who would that have been?
Well, okay, in terms of what she has to say in the episode, I think she says the least about Geordi.
I was actually going to make an argument for, say, Riker.
I feel like she said more.
She's saying stuff like, Riker, you always made me laugh. Do you have any evidence of that? I can't remember one time that Will made Natasha laugh.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
But at least, okay, I'm only going into Geordi's defense because we did watch Hiding Q recently.
Yes.
And it seemed as if he had eyes, no pun intended, for Tasha. Maybe she picked up on that a little bit, and
but did she show any interest back?
No,
or any
it's
even
the story of Geordi's life.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the whole funeral or whatever. It's something
it's something
because we'll have other ones coming up where it feels a little even less ceremonious the way they were gotten rid of. At least in this case, there's that kind of emotional heft to it that, I mean, they took time. They took 8 minutes or something like that to bring all these characters onto the holodeck in some sort of orchard or something and have Tasha acknowledge each of these characters and what they meant to her. I mean, this is not rushed.
I'll say this, though. If I was a member of the viewing audience back in the day, I would have been watching this the whole time thinking, so is her hologram going to materialize into the replacement for Tasha Yar now? Is that what's happening?
The first time I saw it, this is so embarrassing. So embarrassing.
Okay.
I thought they'd buried her in the holodeck. Because I was like, that's the gravestone.
So, people would just come in.
Trip over the headstone.
Wow. Wow, Cam, that's pretty dark.
I know. Oh, man. I don't know what I was thinking. Because today when I'm watching it, I'm like, why did I ever think that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, sir.
But it does sort of give that impression.
Yeah, I never actually thought about it. I just figured it's just a memorial service, instead of her a giant blown up picture of her in 10 Forward. Honestly, if 10 Forward existed back in season 1, there would have been a Geordi / Ro Laren sort of memorial service in 10 Forward, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
With Riker on trombone for sure.
Obviously.
It is just kind of weird how they really talk about how much she meant to the crew, but I mean, I guess it's just 80s television. They never really acknowledge her kind of going forward. We get, obviously appearances in Yesterday's Enterprise and all good things. Like, Tasha Yar does live on in interesting ways that some of the other characters don't. I think that they always kind of honor that character throughout the series.
And that's one thing that I think we should be discussing is how they acknowledge that character as the series progresses.
Yeah, well, I think part of the issue with Tasha Yar is that even at the time when they decided to kill her, like a big section of the writing staff was very against this decision. And ultimately, the episode comes out, does whatever it does with viewers, but a lot of the creative team felt it was an unmitigated disaster. And I think from that point forward, there was more of an effort to honor the character. The idea of when they have her back to like make audiences like Tasha in a way that really season 1 TNG did not.
Yeah, well, but I mean, early on, she seemed like a character that had a lot of potential.
Especially in the premiere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you figured, okay, she was going to be like one of the big players here. And then again, she's just given exposition. Mm-hmm. I can understand why Denise Crosby would want to leave. But okay, you bring up the way that we honor the character going forward. Yesterday's Enterprise, they acknowledge it head on. Guinan says you had a meaningless death.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important that the writers are trying to like fix whatever that very troubling way that she departed the series.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, that's good. They send her back in time for a noble death. We get the return of Denise Crosby as she portrays Sela, her half Romulan daughter.
Right.
Seems a little bit fan fiction-y, but okay. Kim, whatever happens with Sela by the end?
I'm vague on.
Does she get embedded on the planet Vulcan?
No, she's stopped from her scheme.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the last we see of her. There's no real epilogue given to what happened with Sela.
It seemed as if like they were building her up, and then the character just kind of fizzled out, which is disappointing.
Yeah, and it's not even like Tasha Yar dies in battle with like an interesting adversary that audiences hold in a certain amount of regard. Armis is I think a cool visual, but I was reflecting back on, we had a conversation when we reviewed Star Trek 2009, which you can get in the archives. That villain, Nero, I was kind of fond of because he's kind of like what happens when Starfleet goes up against an idiot. Like, Nero is not a sophisticated guy, right? Armis is really dumb.
Yes.
Like, really dumb.
Well, his emotional IQ is very, very low.
Yes, lower than Geordi's.
Who would have a better time on a date, Geordi or Armis?
Armis would be more memorable, I think.
Okay.
But I mean, this character of Armis, he's not even dumb in an interesting way. He is just dumb. Like, the scenes where he's talking to Troy and what have you,
yeah.
You're just like, oh my god, I would be so impatient even talking to this guy. The fact that they have Jean-Luc kind of matching wits with him. I mean, Jean-Luc sits down, he's just like, yeah, whatever.
I know, yeah.
So the idea that this is the character that takes Tasha Yar out makes it all the more insulting. Had Armis been a figure who maybe came back or meant something to the series, but this feels like just a one-off, Power Rangers villain popping up, killing her, and then disappearing.
Like an Ivan Ooze kind of character?
Yeah.
Sub Ivan Ooze, I would even say.
Can you be sub Ivan Ooze?
I don't know. I mean, there's some pretty boring Power Ranger villains.
That's true.